This man stays at home all day, eats, and then sleeps. He can't earn a single penny. His wife is extremely disappointed in him and wants to kick him out of the house. The man angrily leaves the house. He returns to his old job. He decides to pull off a big job. His name is Mason, once the best Special Forces soldier. During a mission, he was unfortunately injured. Eventually, he had to be discharged. But the survival and combat skills he learned in the military are of no use in everyday life. Temporarily, Mason couldn't adapt to his current life. Life was extremely bad. Until one day, an old friend, Sebastian, came to find Mason. He invited him to join his company as a bodyguard. At this time, Mason was enduring his wife's anger because of his uselessness. So he immediately agreed. Very quickly, Sebastian assigned him his first mission. It was to protect a very famous female reporter who was going to a country in the Middle East to conduct interviews. So the next day, early in the morning, Mason arrived at the TV station and saw reporter Claire carrying her luggage. Leaving the building, Mason immediately ran to help. It turned out to be misunderstood as a fan wanting an autograph. "Thank you for your support, goodbye." There was no other way. Mason had to clarify his identity. After learning the truth, Claire was extremely embarrassed and took the initiative to talk to him. She heard he came from Green Beret, which clearly signaled that he was cheated on. It's not a good reputation. Hearing this, Mason was at a loss for words. "I am the top Special Forces soldier." Then the two boarded a plane to the Middle East. This time, Claire's interview subject was the president of a small country. They just got off the plane. The president personally came to pick them up. The two even took a photo together. The president was so friendly, completely different from the image of a thug that people usually spread. This surprised Claire greatly. Then the two got into a special vehicle to go to the president's residence to conduct the interview. On the way, the president and Claire were drinking and chatting very happily, while Mason felt like an outsider. So he turned his head to the side to enjoy the scenery. Unexpectedly, as the convoy was crossing the bridge, an explosion suddenly occurred. A group of insurgents quickly blocked their path. The driver and the bodyguards were shot dead by them. After a few seconds of shock, Mason quickly retaliated. First, he crawled to the driver's seat to control the car. Then he stepped on the gas to reverse, to evade their missiles. Next, he quickly sped forward. He rammed and killed an insurgent who was reloading. Then he got out of the car and took care of the remaining clumsy soldiers. A long-planned assassination attempt was turned into a car accident by Mason. Unexpectedly, he was so skilled. Claire immediately had a different view of Green Beret to prevent someone from chasing them from behind. The three armed men fled into the forest. Facing Mason's suspicion, the president frankly said, "Some of my subordinates want to kill me, but I don't know who they are." Seeing that the situation was beyond his expectations, Mason took out the satellite phone, immediately reported the situation to headquarters. After knowing their current situation, Sebastian immediately dispatched a helicopter to provide support. After planning their withdrawal, the president borrowed Mason's satellite phone to prepare to contact his nephew, Jorge, telling him to quickly send people to support. Unexpectedly, Jorge was the one behind this. At this time, he had called many reporters to come, preparing to announce the news that the president was attacked and killed. He received the order to immediately assume his uncle's position. Unexpectedly, he received a call from the president. Unexpectedly, his uncle was still alive. Jorge was extremely surprised, but he quickly calmed down, immediately ordered his subordinates to eliminate the president, forcing them to shoot the president dead before he could return. At the same time, the support helicopter arrived very quickly and reached the designated location. Unexpectedly, a few insurgents appeared above. Mason realized that this situation was unusual, so he led Claire to escape. From the high-altitude helicopter, they located the position of the two. Bullets rained down like rain. Luckily, the two were the main characters, so the bullets just grazed past them. Next, the helicopter fired missiles. The two frantically ran out of the forest, running towards the stream bank, but then were shot dead. Mason knew that if they kept running like this, they would both be shot. So, he found a place to aim his gun at the helicopter and shoot. After shooting down the helicopter, the two hid again in the forest, because behind them were two armed insurgents. The most important thing right now is to stay alive. But in the midst of panic, Claire and Mason got separated. Two insurgents approached her. Seeing this, Claire hurriedly hid behind a tree root. When she was about to be discovered by them, Mason suddenly rushed out from the side. After a while of fighting, he finally dealt with the enemy. Claire beside him kept feeling lucky for having hired Mason. Unexpectedly, he was so strong. At that moment, another insurgent suddenly appeared behind Mason. As he was about to be shot, gunshots rang out. The insurgent fell down. It turned out that the president arrived just in time to rescue them. After that, the president took the two to flee back to his hometown. He grew up in this village since childhood. Seeing the people here, he felt extremely close. The village chief saw the president bringing the guests here, and enthusiastically greeted them by hugging them. Due to somewhat limited conditions, the three were taken to bathe in the same place. This scene was so beautiful, so everyone played the original film to watch. The president still did not forget the purpose of the trip, this time, for Claire. After bathing, he and Claire proceeded to conduct the interview, in the presence of all the villagers. Before coming here, the information the media knew all along portrayed the president as a ruthless person. But after a short period of time, spending time with him, and the affection the villagers had for him, made her doubt the external rumors. Then the president revealed the truth. It turned out there was an external force, aiming at their country's rich natural resources. They wanted to exploit them at low prices. But the president refused. He wants to use these resources to serve the people. so the opposition supported the insurgent forces, aiming to overthrow his government. Patriotic ideology. For the president's people, made Claire have a different view of him. This interview was extremely special and very successful. By evening, everyone gathered together to drink and celebrate. But after having a few drinks, Claire suddenly became emotional. Her feelings inside could no longer be contained. She saw Mason had no bed and had to sleep on a chair. So she went to invite Mason to sleep at her place at night. When bored, they could exercise to kill time. Unexpectedly, Mason was a special forces soldier, so his willpower was very strong. Claire's seduction yielded no results. Meanwhile, when Jorge's assassination attempts continuously failed, Colonel Jan personally brought people here. Moreover, he was the true mastermind behind it all. Jorge was just a puppet. He ordered Jorge to find the president immediately and kill him. Otherwise, he should prepare his own coffin at home. At the same time, after waking up, Mason received a call from Sebastian. He ordered Mason to kill the president. This was Mason's true purpose. Moreover, Sebastian received a large sum of money from a client, using Claire's interview as a pretext to set a trap. But Mason believed the president was a good man. He didn't want to do that, so he took Claire with him, to prepare to leave immediately. Just then, Jan's forces arrived. The president hurriedly led everyone around the back of the village. To escape, Jan couldn't find the president, and intended to kill all the villagers here. Seeing this, the president decided to charge out. At a critical moment, Mason rode in to pick him up, saving the president from their gunpoint. Then the three rode away. Unexpectedly, Claire wasn't good at riding. Halfway, she fell off the horse. She was captured by Jan's men. Mason ran into the dense forest, just managing to escape their pursuit. But Jan's insurgent forces were very strong. To save Claire, the president had to quickly regain power. After that, the president took Mason into the city to seek rescue. But when they arrived, they found out the president's reinforcements were a sloppy fat guy. This puzzled Mason greatly. After that, he followed the president's orders to use the president to trade hostages with Jan. Although Mason didn't know why the president was doing this, he still went to meet Jan. As soon as they met, both sides aimed their guns at each other. Even though Mason was alone, he didn't lose in terms of momentum. No wonder he was the top special forces soldier in the US. Then the insurgents brought Claire out of the car, preparing to immediately exchange hostages. Unexpectedly, the president led his civilian army here. Jan was taken aback and didn't know what to do. No matter how bold he was, he wouldn't dare to act in front of the people. Claire was rescued. To resolve this situation, the president decided to return immediately to the presidential palace. He took a tunnel that only the president knew about. At this time, Jorge was immersed in the peak moment of his life. Unexpectedly, the president suddenly stepped out from behind. At this point, he realized the betrayer was his own nephew. Claire immediately took out her phone to live stream and announced his crimes. Jorge hurriedly explained that he was lured by evil people. The president, out of respect for him being family, decided to spare him. At this moment, the chubby General Martins entered. Seeing the president was not dead, he resolutely opened fire. Unexpectedly, the pocket on the president's chest blocked the bullet, but Jorge had been hit multiple times and died on the spot. At that moment, the president's guard rushed in, pointing their guns at the three of them. The president immediately gave a patriotic speech. At that moment, everyone turned around to confront the insurgents who had just arrived. Both sides pulled their guns and the scene became chaotic. Mason called the president and Claire, hastily retreating to the tunnel, but they were still discovered by the insurgents. The president hurriedly led them to hide in a secret room. Inside, there was wine and food that could be used freely. They thought the three could be safe here, but the cunning insurgents sabotaged the power supply. The secret room immediately became pitch dark. The most dangerous part was that due to the power outage, the ventilation system stopped working. With no other choice, the three could only run outside. Jan blocked their way. The three could only fight while retreating, but the enemy's firepower was too strong. Mason told the president and Claire to go ahead. He stayed behind to fight. With nothing holding him back, Mason began to give it his all in battle. But after a while, Mason's old injuries suddenly flared up. He was pinned to the ground by Jan, with a knife held to his neck. As Mason was in danger, Claire suddenly appeared and knocked out Jan. But the danger was still not completely eliminated. The president's guard and the insurgents were battling outside. Fierce fighting ensued. Mason immediately picked up an AK and joined the fight. This strength and allure captivated Claire. At the same time, she learned that Mason was in danger. Sebastian decisively canceled his business deal, bringing his security team to provide support. Both sides coordinated to completely eliminate the remnants of the insurgents. At this time, Claire was holding a phone, live broadcasting around the world. Later, at a press conference, the president announced his resignation and the establishment of a transitional government. He promised to protect the nation's natural resources. Mason's wife also saw her husband's heroic actions on TV. She immediately said she didn't want a divorce anymore. After completing the mission, Mason hurried home, and his daughter hugged him, seeing him as a hero. Then the president sent him a message, saying he wanted to give him a surprise. Mason ran to the bank, only to find an extra $5 million in his account. Mason was overjoyed. At this moment, his status in the family had changed. This concludes the entire content of the film, Freelance Agent. Did you find this movie interesting? If you liked it, please give me a subscribe. If you think it's just okay, let me know in the comments. Thank you for your interest and watching. Goodbye and see you again.